Hello and welcome to The Bridge. We are back with yet another live, and this time we'll be previewing India's crucial AFC Asian Cup qualifying match against Hong Kong. I am Abhijit Nair, and today I've been joined by an Indian football expert in Arunava Chaudhuri and John Mathew, who, by the way, also writes some insightful articles for The Bridge. Uh, Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you, Vijay.
Right, so Arunava, John, let's get right into it. India plays Hong Kong tomorrow, and it's a very crucial match. All the four teams in the group are level at 1 point apiece. The last matches they all played have ended in goalless draw, so there's a lot to play for. What do you make of it? John, we'll start with you. You're mute, John.
Sorry. I think it is a pretty do or die game, to be honest, because since we drew with Bangladesh at home and Singapore and Hong Kong also drew, the group is basically same as it started. It's just there is 1 point and one game less for everyone. So at the end of the day, and this is the away game, so we'll have to play them at home again, and then since we lost to Bangladesh, at some point it'll come down. Maybe if we lose this game, maybe it'll come down to the fact that we may have to go beat them at their place. And considering we couldn't do that at home, that will be a question.
Right, Arunava, first thoughts on how Team India is shaping up for this match?
I think John explained it quite right. The issue in this group, and it makes it very tricky as well. All four teams are on 1 point. You've lost 2 points at home to Bangladesh. Now you go away to Hong Kong, and you have to get a result. And a draw normally is not enough. You have to actually play for a win. And if you look at the recent performances of the national team, especially the one in the friendly last week in Thailand, it's very worrisome to say the least. And Manolo has not been able to get things out of the team like he normally does in the ISL. We've seen that with Hyderabad FC and as well with FC Goa, that he can develop a team. A team evolves, players come up, step up. And I think that's the whole question for this game in Hong Kong, against Hong Kong, sold out stadium, new venue. What can we do? Can we perform under pressure? Or do the weaknesses that we've seen in the recent past showcase itself once more?
Right, as you rightly mentioned, the recent performances have not been up to the mark, and as we can, the data speaks for itself. I believe India has won just one of the last 10 or 12 matches, and even that came against a not so strong Maldives team. So, going into the match, John, what do you think will be the focus point for Manolo? Uh, Looking at the Indian
I
team.
mean, to be honest, for a good period of time, we've talked about development in the team, like how we will develop our technicals, how we'll develop our style. But this is a stage where that tree kind of goes out of the window. It's result oriented now. We need a win, and the matter is that we have qualified for the past two Asian Cups, and if we are to go upwards from here, this should be the standard. Qualifying for the Asian Cup should be the bare minimum, and if that is the case, then this is basically a final now.
Right. Arunava, you also mentioned Manolo, not being able to get the required results, but we've seen what happened with Stimat over the years, and now with Manolo, there's also question marks on whether he will stay with the team post this clash. So, what do you make of the whole scenario that's being played out at the back end, and do you think it will affect the performance on the pitch?
I think it will surely affect the performance on the field, because a football team knows these kind of things around their coach, right? So the one of their player might think, oh, you know what, he's going to leave anyway. Why bother? That might be the thing. Other players might say, listen, I like the coach. Some of them are players who played or play under him in FC Goa, or have played under him in Goa or at Hyderabad. So they have a special connect to the coach. So, there's a lot of psychology on that part. The problem for Manolo is, what I have felt is, he's a very good club coach, but I think he's not understood that the job of a national team coach is totally different. You've got much less time. You don't have the influential foreigners that you have in the ISL. The foreigners decide in the ISL or even in the I League who wins or who loses. So these are all realities. And something which I know because I've worked with them in the past with the national team, with Stephen Constantine and with Bob Houghton, is that those two coaches always used to say is you need to recognize if a player is up to the international level. He could be the best player in the ISL. He could be a very good player in the I League. But that step up to international football is quite steep. And that is something which I felt Manolo has not been able to sort of figure out and sort out, because there are a number of players who I feel should not be even in the starting 11, forget to being in the squad. So that is, I think, I feel the biggest drawback for him, that he's not been able to figure that out since he's been appointed.
Right. John, I'll come to you next. From the Igor Stimac era to now, what, around 9 or 10 months that Manolo Marquez has been with the Indian team, has there been any visible changes in how the team plays? Or has there been any change in how they, go about their stuff tactically on the field? Have you observed anything as such?
I mean, I don't think any stark differences have been there. They go at it in a pretty similar way. I mean, possession-based football. But the matter is that with Stimatch, we had results. So obviously it looks better. With Manolo, we haven't had that yet. So comparatively, obviously, Manolo will feel down. But I think the level of football hasn't been that much of a difference between both. It's been pretty similar, but Manolo doesn't have the results, at least yet. So
So does that point of not having the result to show for, does that also play a part in the coach's mind before you go into such an important match, Arunava?
100%, it plays on the mind of the coach. And if we look at the Thailand game, for example, Manolo tried out a 4-4-2 or a 4-1-1, however you want to see the formation. And he's left his sort of usual 4-2-3-1. He tried out something. He's got a lot of criticism, even though I thought, if you want to talk about players, I think Ashley Kurunian trying to make him the link player between midfield and attack, not a bad idea. But it didn't work out. But also the other players have not been able to step up. So Manolo's thing that you see at at FC Goa, or especially at Hyderabad, used to see that the players were able to get like 10-20% more out of themselves. That, in my opinion, is missing at this moment in time in Manolo and his team. And it's rather, we're talking about this, he said it himself, or even Sandesh Jingan as a captain said it the other day. We are not performing to the best of our capabilities. Right, we are not the best team in the world, no doubt about it. If you watch Spain versus Portugal in the UEFA Nations League, and then watch India games, you know what the brutal difference is. But the success under Stimac, under Stephen Constantine, earlier under Bob Houghton, Sukhvinder Singh, whoever you want to talk about, was always that the players wanted to play for this jersey. They had the passion, and they got more out of themselves than they're capable of. Otherwise, India would have not gotten results, because we have to be honest to ourselves. We've never produced sort of the best players in the world. We don't produce Peles or Maradonas. So therefore, hard work and dedication is something which is very, very important for Indian football.
Right. Again, John, is this hard work and dedication, is this something you see lacking when it comes to Indian players when they turn up to play for the national games or for international matches? Do you feel, is it so? Because there's also this growing sentiment among fans as well, that maybe the players are not always up to their 100%, or they tend to pull out of the Indian squad when it comes for them to play international matches.
actually, yeah, because I was just thinking back. In 2019, when we played the Asian Cup, we played against UAE. I was at the stadium, I saw the game. I was much younger then. We lost 2-0, but there was a sense of pride after the game. We hit the crossbar. We came close to scoring against the UAE side in front of their home crowd. In their, the UAE hosting the Asian Cup was a big deal for them. And we came into it as a complete underdog, and we rattled them for quite a bit of the game. For at least 30 to 35 minutes, we rattled them, properly rattled them. You just don't get that feeling nowadays. Like we can lose, but you can lose with pride. There's no, it just that just doesn't come across nowadays.
Abhijit, I'll just add a point to just what John said because I was there at that game as well. We very often talk about that first game against Thailand, which we won 4-1. That second half most probably has been the best performance I have personally seen live of an Indian football team at a big competition. But those 30-35 minutes, and I just mentioned Ashik Kurunian. Ashik Kurunian that day should have scored 2 goals against the UAE, right? And who knows? Again, who knows? This is the whole story of Indian football. We should have achieved something, and we never did that. And that is the sad part of really where we were in 2019. We even in 2022, with that group qualification group, okay, we will get through. At this moment in time, we are worried that we will miss out on the Asian Cup, which is a 24 team competition and which where an Indian national football team should be playing every time. It should not be a question mark. That is, I think, the worrying sign for Indian football, that we are discussing this and we're worried in front of the Hong Kong. We are worried in front of the Hong Kong China. We're not worried in front of China. We're worried of Hong Kong China. And that is a worrying part. If we've got Bangladesh, if we've got Hong Kong, if we've got Singapore, even in the last cycle, we would have said, yeah, we'll be tough, but we're going to win or get through the group. And I think this is something which has been a shift over the last few years, that we've gone so far down that we're worried that teams who are in the 150s, 60s, 70s, 80s could potentially beat us.
Right. Again, that being said, Hong Kong have managed to produce results in the recent past. Right. This is where I'll bring John. And John, you wrote this fantastic preview piece for us on why you were worried that Hong Kong could beat India. So if you could take us through how the Hong Kong team is shaped up. I believe the coach has also worked with a lot of the Indian players in the ISL. So how will all of that play out?
Hong Kong actually, compared to the last time we met them, have changed massively. Uh, they have even changed massively compared to their recent Asian Cup performances. After Ashley Westwood came in, the intent itself is there. After Ashley Westwood came in, their first game was away to Liechtenstein in Europe. That was their first European game. And there is also a sense of fan rivalry in that, because Hong Kong lost that game and then directly fans called for Westwood's head. They wanted him out. But then he went on a 8-game winning run and everything was back to normal. Then they drew with Singapore and they had not a great result against Nepal as well. And then again they're calling for his head. So there is pressure on him coming into this game. And moreover, under Westwood, what happened is Hong Kong became a much more versatile team, I'll say, because they have this capability now to be defensive against stronger opponents and offensive against weaker opponents. But that is also a criticism that they've faced in recent past, because the only really big team they've faced and won is Philippines. Other than that, all their all victories have came against rather lower ranked nations. But then again, the performance in those against those weaker nations are pretty compelling that you can't really blame him. I mean, when you're playing a weaker nation and you're winning 5-0, you can't really blame the performances. When you're playing a weaker nation and you're winning 1-0, then maybe you have a scope. But when you're winning 5-0 and all, there is no scope for debate even. That's one thing. And obviously, there is a influx of naturalized players, which is also pro and con for Westwood, because right now fans are calling for his head over selection issues. The issue, the recent issue is that there was a Hong Kong player called Chi. I forgot his full name. Sorry. He scored 12 goals in the Hong Kong Premier League, but he wasn't chosen for the recent lineup. And Manuel Bleda, a foreigner, a naturalized Spanish player, was chosen instead of him, and he has 0 goals in the league. So obviously, fans have a disapproval of that, and that is an issue Westwood is facing. But still, the team is delivering results on. I mean, they have lost one game under him till now. So I don't, and they are a tough team to beat. That's the difference now.
Just a quick follow-up question to John, you as well. You ended with saying they are a tough team to beat. Could you throw some light on how exactly will they cause problems for India?
Well, firstly, they defend really well. If they want to defend, they'll defend really compact. They'll defend really narrow. They won't allow you space, which is tough, especially considering our case because I personally, after watching that Thailand game, wasn't convinced how we progressed the ball. We Thailand had spaces and we couldn't progress, so it remains to be seen how we'll play against a low block. And Hong Kong will defend in a low block if it comes to them. And I think with the tone that Westwood has been telling, I mean, he's always telling India are the favorites. He's playing us as the upper hand, them as the underdogs. So when you play against a super team and you are the underdog, usually you go into defense. So he may choose that way. And then the issue is that they have good transitional threat as well. But then you could argue Hong Kong's current team seems to be ravaged by injuries. Some of their major attackers are injured, which could cause an issue. But then again, with the playing style that they've developed over this time, if they can replace it, they have naturalized players who have similar capabilities. They just haven't played for the national team yet. But if they do, and if it clicks, I think it will be seamless. So they can defend and they can hit on the counters. It remains to be seen if India can go through that in defense and in offense. And then another advantage for Hong Kong is they're really, really good on set pieces. Meanwhile, it seems if you take the past 10 games, we are only good on set pieces. We can't score open play goals. We just score from corners or penalties. Uh, while they score like I think about 20% or 30% of the goals they scored under Westwood is from set pieces, and that's from uh, proper deliveries coming into the box, be it via throw-ins, crosses, I mean corners, free kicks, anything. So it and with the influx of naturalized players, they always also have an height advantage over us. So
Right. And the takeaway is Hong Kong really defend well, right? So, and one of India's major problem, as Don mentioned, has been scoring goals, breaking through the defense. So, it has been so bad that we had to call back Sunil Chhetri after he announced his retirement. So, Arunava, why do you think have India been unable to solve that problem? Why have we not been able to find that one good striker who could you know help the team get past in close matches, scoring goals?
I think I've been following Indian football closely now for over 27 years, and we've been lucky in that period that when I started watching with I'm Vijayan and Baichung Bhutia, then we had Baichung and Sunil, and then Sunil took over, and then we thought, okay, Sunil with JJ or Sunil with Robin or whoever, that there are options. When Sunil retired last year, that replacement was not there. So we didn't have that aging striker who was sort of going down and that young striker was coming up. And I go back, especially that 2007, 2011 period where Baichung and Sunil were playing in parallel. That also, I'm missing that desire, that urge to perform. I mean, I saw 2 years ago in training Sunil and the team ahead of the SAF championship final in Bangalore, and it looked to me that Sunil was the hardest working guy on the field. Even then, he was by far the oldest. And that is something which I feel is very, very worrying, that when I see the young players, career decisions, where do I go? Where do I play? Am I getting enough game time? Am I getting enough exposure? It's a whole own discussion, but that seems to be lacking because people forget that when Sunil came to Kolkata in 2004, he was not the number one player. He came from Delhi, failed in Kolkata, actually, to be very, very honest, right? So went to J City, became a top scorer, and then the rest of it is history, and it just went upwards. And that is where I'm not seeing that trajectory in players, especially in our strikers, where you say, okay, this boy or this player can make it and can push. And we have another problem which I always see is we've got a lot of late bloomers in the Indian national team setup. Players who we hope that the 17, 18, 19-year-olds are going to be successful, but our players often mature at 25, 26, 27, right? and some of the players are actually in their peak or sometimes even past their peak, but they're still good enough to get into the national team, and that's something which is very, very worrying. I mean, again, look at Lamine Yamal. We do not have those kind of players who are breaking through at 16, 17, 18. We don't see a player like Baichung Bhutia who broke through at a very, very young age, playing Subrato Cup at the time and then going to East Bengal. So that is to me a very, very big problem, is that who are the players to put pressures on the regulars? People say, oh, player X out, player Y out, this guy out, that guy out. Where are the replacements? Are the replacements better? And you said something, Abhijit, at the start, which I think is also very, very important to add, is the national team is not a testing ground. You have to try and play your best players. And best players sometimes means best players for international football, not best players or best performers in the Indian Super League. And that is the tough call again for Manolo. How do you find that right players? And when Sunil came back, I said very, very clearly publicly, I think it's the right decision, because we have to be honest to ourselves. We don't have an alternative.
Right. I mean, it is sad to see that he had to come back, and we have to rely on him. But eventually, yeah, it is what it is, right? India don't really have a striker who could produce results at the moment. Uh, that being said, one of the other talking points has been India's midfield lacking control. So, John, do you agree? Do you think it is a personnel problem, or is it more of a structural problem?
I think it's a bit of everything because I think I just said we I saw the game against Thailand and there was no progression, and it wasn't even that compact of a block from Thailand. We could penetrate that. And against Hong Kong, while writing the article in the draft, I actually wrote this: we can beat Hong Kong if we want to. I think we have the talent to, and they will leave spaces. I think after the last game for Hong Kong against Nepal, even the Nepal's coach said, on transitions they leave spaces. It's obvious they do leave spaces, and the issue is, will we be able to exploit them? Will we get the ball through those channels? Will someone find it? Will we play it at the right time? Will we play it at the right weight? Will we play it to the right person? At the end of the day, all these minute details matter. And for the national team, as of recent, it just hasn't been working. And I think Manolo has tried different personnel in different systems, so slightly varying systems, but it just hasn't clicked. So it has to be a culmination of everything.
Right. And has Manolo, really been able to implement a one consistent structure which he could, fall back to, rely on to, produce results over the long run, Arunava?
No, I think he's still trying to figure out what to play with this team. If you think that a coach who's normally does not play a 4-4-2 decides to try a 4-4-2, which doesn't turn out to be a 4-4-2, which sometimes was, as I said, a 4-1-1 or even sometimes a 4-5-1 to that extent, then you know that Manolo is trying to figure out what to do with the team. And I think that the problem that we saw also against Thailand was that with two defensive midfielders in a 4-4-2 in Ayush Chhetri and in Apuya, both of them are not natural blockers. Both of them are sort of a 6 and an 8, sort of, especially Ayush. Even Apuya is more of a creative player, even though has been used, especially by Mohun Bagan this season, as the one single blocker in their system. I think that you need someone, if you keep Apuya, let's say, playing, you need someone like a Suresh or even someone like a Deepak Tangri, who's going to be that blocker, who's going to just clean up or try to at least clean up everything. I think that's the biggest problem in our midfield at the moment. The wingers are not delivering. Sunil got a lot of criticism for the Thailand game, but I'll also say is that, okay, Sunil is dependent on the supply that he receives. And last season or the season gone by at Bangalore FC, the main thing was Ryan Williams cross, Sunil Chhetri header, Sunil Chhetri gets the ball, does something with it. If he doesn't get the supply, it's not going to happen. So the question is also, how does Manolo build the team? Because the strength when India was winning in 2023 was that our defense was leaking very, very limited number of goals, if no goals at all. And in this moment, we are in a situation is that where you're fearful that every game India is going to leak a goal. We've not done it against Bangladesh or against the Maldives, but there is always that fear, oh my God, this defense is not sure of itself. And that is, I think, the problem is the defensive structure, and then to have the confidence to go out and attack an opponent. And I am very, very worried when coaches in a context of an Indian national team talk about possession football. Because I think we need to be very honest to ourselves. Indian footballers cannot play possession football. Period. We have to be honest about that, right? If I like it or not, all of us say, oh, you know what? You want to see them play like tiki-taka. You want to see them combine like Spain, this and that. We don't have the quality of those players. And I remember seeing training sessions with Stephen, with Bob, that they used to always say, I'm working sometimes on the simple basics. They used to work on trapping a ball. And it has not improved over the last 20, 25 years. And that is my big, big concern when it comes about Indian football. Everybody else around us seems to have become better with their football. Bangladesh, we talk about Hamza Chaudhuri and the draw and whatever. We've not beaten Bangladesh in a while. Even in our successful days, we've not beaten Bangladesh. I was in Kolkata 2019 when we drew them 1-1. We needed an Adil Khan late header to get us a 1-1. So therefore, we need to be honest to ourselves. We've glorified a lot of things in the recent past, and that has caused a lot of problem, I think, to Indian football.
Right. And at the start, we also touched about, playing an away game. So the match that we are going to play against Hong Kong, it's going to be held in a newly inaugurated stadium. Around 50,000 people are expected to be in the stadium. Do you think that electrifying atmosphere, do you think that will play a part in how India approaches the game, Arunava?
I think it does something to you when you play in front of a full stadium. I think also there will be certain number of Indian fans, Indians living in Hong Kong, coming, and therefore, yeah, but it's and of course, John has mentioned it. There's a certain level of pressure on Ashley, right? So that is something which might be helpful, that there is pressure on Hong Kong, on Ashley Westwood as well. So it is a very, very, it's one of those weird matches in that situation, that there's pressure on both sides. And Hong Kong has, you see it in Southeast Asia and East Asia, that there is a massive backing of their respective teams. So it will be loud. It will be a lot of drums, a lot of chanting, a lot of singing. The question is, does the Indian team realize that they have to rise to the occasion? Because John rightly said, this team can or should be beating Hong Kong, despite of the naturalized players or the origin players, whoever they've gotten involved. Theoretically, this team has it in it. The question is, how much can Manolo get out of this team? And are the boys willing? My biggest fear has been in the last few years now is I see a lack of passion and pride of wearing that India shirt. And if they can change that, India can beat Hong Kong. I know a lot of people said, oh, we're going to lose 3-0, 4-0. I don't even think we're going to lose. If we're going to lose, we're not going to lose by that big margin. But I think India can win and keep that hope of qualifying for the Asian Cup alive. The question is, can they rise to the occasion?
Right. And when you compare the Indian team to other Asian teams like Jordan or even Malaysia, what are those countries doing right, which India is not able to, or not able? Why is India not able to replicate whatever they are doing to get the results, John?
I think different national teams have approached it differently. Some have gone the naturalized players route. Some have gone youth development route. For example, Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan qualifying for the World Cup recently is a work that they have been on for the past 20 years. Meanwhile, we've done nothing and we want to qualify for the next World Cup. And the only shortcut to that is probably OCI, players of origin, etc. But even then, it remains to be seen how far we'll go. We can't be sure. So it depends what approach we take at the end of the day. But If we start the work now, maybe in 20 years we may play the World Cup. I don't think it's an immediate result for anyone.
Right. And we also spoke quite a bit about naturalized players. So there have also been reports recently that India might get in OCI players. Arunava, what do you make of it? Do you think it is the right way forward for Indian football?
I think 100% yes. I think I have to tell a story. The whole um, context of origin players was started by me in 2001 when I first raised the topic with the AFF, a person of Indian origins. So I remember I saw a documentary on Vikas Doraso playing for Lyon at the time. And I thought, okay, this is something. And I remember in 2000, we went with the Indian team to England to play. And in 2001, a player called Harpal Singh became Baichung Bhutia's teammate at Bury FC. And the AFF, yes, wanted to raise the topic, but the regulations in football were different than in other sports. In tennis, you were allowed to have players of origin representing you without having an Indian passport in the Davis Cup and the Fed Cup. Prakash Amritraj, the Uberoy sisters, and others did it. So then in 2006, my PIO card, I'm a German citizen, I'm of Indian origin, I have an OCI. My PIO card went to FIFA. And FIFA said at that time, theoretically, yes, you can play. The rules have changed since then. It's become a little tougher because, as you see everywhere around the world, I think India is the only country in the world which doesn't allow origin players or doesn't include origin players. And the question is, how can we solve this? And I think, in my opinion, it's relatively simple. If you try and create an OCI sports, I would call it, and de facto allow dual citizenship only for sports persons. By that, you work around it, because India also needs to remember that people of origin should be allowed to represent you in an Olympics. So if India wants to host the Olympics, the whole OCI topic ends in 2 seconds. If India wants to host an Olympics, origin players need to be allowed to represent the country. So therefore, I hope we sort it out, because if you look around us, look at the craze in Bangladesh around Hamza Chaudhuri. It is just, my Bangladeshi friends tell me, just insane what has happened. Football currently seems to be overtaking cricket in Bangladesh, right? So for us, we looking at this state, even in the past, it is important for India to allow origin players, because also, unlike other people, I don't think it's a short-term solution. It's a long-term solution. Because if we have OCI players, your national team is more successful, because that's your A team. Whatever happens in the ISL, I League, nice, and we as football fans care about it. But the whole nation cares about it if an Indian national football team is successful. And then more money comes in, there's more interest, there's more, everything is bigger. If you guys cover football, the level of interest has gone down dramatically in the last few months, I feel. And therefore, we need a push, and then we can hope that it, we go in the right direction. Because I think there's a talent pool in regard to players. I think there's a talent pool also in origin people, in regard to coaches, in regard to people who work in football or in sports in general. And that is, I think, something that India needs to tap into.
Right. So we have already spent more than half an hour talking about this. I'll just quickly scan through the comments if there's anything, and then we can go about it that way. Uh, right. So this is a very interesting comment from A. Shashank, who says Ashley Westwood defeated us with Afghanistan's C team, assembling a team within 2 months at our own home, and now he has a much stronger side than that. Uh, what's your take, guys? Do you think Ashley will be able to influence the match so much, sitting outside, sitting in a dugout, John?
I mean, Westwood has an we know Westwood. He has an history of building a squad with at least a certain level of quality wherever he has gone, be it in India or outside India. And he has done the same with Hong Kong as well. The question will be, again, as I said, we can beat them, but will we? He's again built a good squad. They've had a good tactical base. They have their patterns are good. They move well. They know each other. The only pressure on Westwood is really from outside, from the fans who are calling on him for recent results and selections. And for the thing is, as I said, for us this should be the standard. Well, for Hong Kong, this is gonna be the second or so Asian Cup they've played in many years. For them, this is a dream. Well, this should be normal for us. So I honestly think it doesn't matter who's sitting in that dugout. We should be beating them regardless.
Right. And Indian Olympic Sport says if FIFA increase World Cup to 96 team also, then to India won't qualify. Now I would say that it's a bit too pessimistic, but I don't know your take.
See, I think there are a lot of conversations. We will see a first 48 team World Cup next year. The crazy idea of a 64 team World Cup maybe in 2030 as on the centenary of a FIFA World Cup. See, if 96 is not going to happen, let's be realistic. It might happen, I don't know. And at least me, you guys might be young enough for that to maybe see it. But I don't. If 96 teams plays, yes, we will make it. Somehow we'll make it. I mean, FIFA will find a back route for us because we're too important. China and India needs to qualify for a World Cup. But jokes apart, we need to just put the work in. There's this nice word in northern India that they use in Hindi, and they say jugaad. And I think that's the problem that we have in Indian football. We always look for shortcuts. There is, at least in football as a sport, there is no shortcut to development. John mentioned Uzbekistan. It's a perfect example. Uzbekistan, one advantage, of course, they were part of the Soviet Union, so there's this Russian influence. They've always been good in football, but they've been the biggest jokers of Asian football. But they've produced quality. They've produced quality. I go back 2002, Mohun Bagan had won the NFL, and there was this player called Igor Shikvirin who was part of that strike force with Barreto, with Steven Abarovai. One of the best players they've produced at that age. He used to be called the Uzbek Maradona. And sorry, Uzbek Pele, sorry. And but there is no one way to success, right? That's Uzbekistan. You look at Jordan. Jordan has worked internally, but has also been able to send its best players out first to the Middle East, within the Middle East, and now some even into Europe. Now, then we look into Indonesia, where Eric Thohir, as a former Inter Milan owner, says, you know what, let's do everything to get overseas players. And de facto, I call Indonesia now the Netherlands B team, right? But just with these three examples, two have qualified. Indonesia still has the option to qualify. There are different ways of getting to success. And we, as India, need to find our route to that success. With Indonesia, for example, forget, the under 17 team qualified also for a first ever World Cup, right? And that is homegrown talent. So therefore, that, to me, that's the bridge. I say you need a strong foundation. You want to build a high rise, but what we do in India, we plan to build floor number 100, and the foundation is not there. So every time the whole bloody thing collapses. That is our problem. We need to build a strong foundation at grassroots, at youth football. I always say there are 5 points which are important for that: grassroots, youth, coaching, competitions, and scouting. If you sort those things out, you will get better. But the OCI angle is then something which you put on top and then can work on. And there is someone, for example, like Ashley. Ashley worked in Afghanistan to find the right players with the right commitment to come and play for them, right? And that is something. He even had 4 players who were without a club when they beat us, right? And that's the beauty of sports. You might not be better, but if you have the right passion, the desire, the will, you can win. Look at Portugal beating Spain, right? I mean, there's no doubt Spain is the better team. I mean, if there's no doubt about it. They showed it, especially against France when they were leading 5-0 a few days ago. But but Portugal has that desire, with Cristiano Ronaldo and everything that we can talk about, the negative things about Cristiano Ronaldo, but Cristiano has the desire to win. And it is in a small little way. I don't want to compare him to Cristiano Ronaldo, but the same, there's another 40-year-old who's playing at the moment, that's Sunil Chhetri. So therefore, that is something the other players need to look up and work harder. and then do better. And that's, I think, the challenge that we have with the Indian team. So yeah, I mean, my dream still is to see India one day in the World Cup. I think this is the dream of every Indian football fan, and that dream sadly will never die. So yeah, maybe 211 nations will have to play for us to qualify, but the dream just stays on.
Yeah, so we have gone all touched almost the 40-minute mark, so we'll just wrap it up now. Before we go off, any quick predictions for tomorrow's matches, John? We'll start with you for tomorrow's match. What do you think?
Prediction or hope?
Whatever you want to tell us, just give us a disclaimer first. This is what you're hoping, or this is your
I
prediction?
hope we'll win, obviously. I hope we'll win 2-1 or something, but I think it'll be tight because both have an issue for scoring, both have an issue for defending as well. So it remains to be seen whose flaws come out lesser. I think that is the game basically. Whose flaws come out lesser.
All right, and Arunava, anything from your end?
Yeah, John used a word which I love to use a lot, and that's hope. So my hope at the end of the day is that we win. I'm not convinced. Let's put it this way. Um, I see a most likely outcome is a goalless draw, actually, because of the problems that John has mentioned with both teams. But I hope that India steps up. I know that the players are capable of more, and yeah, who knows? But if we by any chance lose, then the Asian Cup looks very, very tough, and that is something which we have to be honest about it ourselves as well. That if we don't win somehow this game, or at least not lose, it's going to be tough because at the other end, also one has to be honest. Bangladesh face Singapore. There's a lot of hype in Bangladesh, but it's not sure that Bangladesh is going to beat Singapore. So it might be a crazy situation that both games again end in a draw, and we're all, oh, terrible, terrible, terrible. But theoretically, in the qualifiers, nothing has changed. So to me, that is looking at the worst case scenarios. That could be actually the best case scenario if both matches end in a draw. All four teams have 2 points after 2 match days. It would be all to play for in the rest of the year. So yeah, but I like John said, let's wish maybe a 2-1, and we go home and we're all happy. But thinking 0-0 most probably is more likely.
Right, so that's all we have from the Brits preview for the India versus Hong Kong clash at the AFC 2027 qualifiers. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Arunava. Thank you, John. And for our viewers, we'll be tracking all the details from the match tomorrow at the bridge.in. Do join in. Do join us for the live blog. Do follow us on our football handles across social media, and where you'll receive all the updates from the match. Thank you guys for joining in, and see you next time.